SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Southern Metalworks is the stop for deals on pre-engineered metal buildings, pole barn kits, and all metal building components. Financing is available. Southern Metalworks, Highway 51, Southeast Bogachita. Call 601-734-3999.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midday SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, on location today at the Sheraton Refuge. We're here for the Mississippi Public Safety Summit. Rhino Safe and Sound back in the SuperTalk headquarters. We'll be, of course, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday Eve.
We kick things off this morning with Andrew Bailey, FBI Co-Deputy Director and the Attorney General of the great state of Mississippi, General Lynn Fitch. Andy, General, good to see you guys. Thanks for coming on.
Great to be here.
All right, so we got lots of people in this building today, General. So what's this all about?
Well, it's an exciting day, for sure. We've got over 900 attendees here at the Public Safety Summit. And it's local, state, federal partners all here together, prosecutors, first responders. It's an amazing experience to be together and talk about what's happening, what are the trends, what do we need to address, what are the issues out there. And when you can bring everybody together and look at the issues, again, how do we react, how do we work together, it's just a huge collaborative moment. So very exciting. And we're so honored to have the Deputy Director, Andrew Bailey, here with us today of the FBI.
Thanks for being here, Andrew. So law enforcement is a team sport, is it not?
Yeah, totally agree. Look, we've got to work together. It's the criminal justice system. It requires coordination, collaboration. We got to build the relationships before the crisis happens. But look, I mean, at the end of the day, if you look over the past 6 years, there were more than 2,000 shootings at police officers, more than 500 ambushes of law enforcement officers. We need a culture change in this country. And so from the FBI's perspective, how can we best partner with local law enforcement agencies to protect law enforcement, ensure the rule of law is enforced, and then find justice for victims. And it's always good to be here in a state like Mississippi with great leadership from the Attorney General's office, like General Fitch, who's admittedly been a friend of mine for a long time, but it's good to be here in a place that respects and supports law enforcement, and we can start changing that culture. If we can export that model from Mississippi elsewhere, we'll be in good shape.
It seems like, Andrew, during the Biden administration, I think Americans were frustrated at what appeared to be almost a decriminalization of crime and a vilifying of victims. We seem to be more concerned about the criminals than the victims. How have things changed since President Trump took office?
Well, President Trump took office with an overwhelming majority of support with the promise to make America safe again, and we were dedicated that to the FBI in partnership with our state and local colleagues. And so we've moved more than 1,000 personnel, agents, support staff out of the headquarters building, pushing them out to the field to ensure that we are focused on the core mission of the FBI, not the weaponization of the government against an ideology that bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. disagree with.
Should be a firewall between the political aspect and the law enforcement and justice aspect, and return to our roots of blind justice, essentially.
Yeah, the rule of law knows no politics, and that's why things like, for instance, I was formerly the Attorney General in Missouri, and we had a Soros-backed prosecutor in the city of St. Louis that had a 96% declination rate of referred police reports. 96% of crimes she wouldn't prosecute. So you have this deleterious effect regionally across the entire state. And so we removed her from office. And that's what you got to do, because at the end of the day, the victims deserve better. Our law enforcement officers who are risking their lives every day, going out on the street, putting the uniform on to keep us safe, they deserve better too.
General Fish, your office has had a strong focus on human trafficking. I think every time you're on the program with me, we talk about this. It's a major issue, and it's one of those things that's kind of behind the scenes. The average person walking around is not even aware that this sort of stuff's going on. And so you've focused on that. You've trained lots of law enforcement officers. You've ratcheted up your prosecution of the criminals in that area. How does the FBI work with you guys in this?
Well, they're an amazing partner, and thank you for that, Gerard. We've certainly made that a priority. We've now rescued over 400 here in the state of Mississippi. We've arrested nearly 300, and we are prosecuting very hard because we want to send that strong message. You're not going to come here and take advantage and leverage our folks here in the state of Mississippi. If you do, we're going to come after you. And our ultimate goal is certainly to get those victims to become survivors. But we do it through the partnerships. All of the operations, FBI is always involved. And again, when you have that in-depth knowledge, the analysis that you work together, the collaboration, it makes those partnerships and those operations very strong. So we very much appreciate that. And certainly Deputy Director Bailey's been a leading force in that. The President came out early on and said, we're going to go after human trafficking, we're going to go after the drugs, and he's been very strong in leading in that capacity. So having Deputy Director Bailey and his entire team here in the state of Mississippi, Zach Eichhoff and his team, they've done amazing work as a huge partner for us.
Director Bailey, the bad guys are pretty smart, aren't they? And they've got very sophisticated technology and using tools that it's really not what you think about. When you think of the FBI, you think about more physical crime and not so much all this white-collar crime. But that, in fact, is most of your work, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely, and cyber crime as well. Let me go back to the human trafficking real quick, because I want to just establish this benchmark that the state of Mississippi under General Fitch's leadership has the best in show, best in class, top tier anti-human trafficking effort. It's a model that every state should be following. Certainly, when I was Attorney General in the state of Missouri, we studied very closely the work that General Fitch and her team had done and the successes that she's enjoyed in rescuing victims from modern human slavery and sought to emulate that work. So kudos to her for the fantastic leadership nationally on that issue. But when we look at the modern threat landscape, cybercrime, and the state of Mississippi has experienced that with the recent ransomware attack at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. Luckily, we had prepared, and state and local officials under state leadership had prepared and done tabletop drills, and were able to get resources and assets in place to help rectify that situation in real time. And so when I say that the coordination needs to happen before the crisis, that really demonstrates what I'm talking about. If you've got the relationships, you got the phone number, you know who to call, then we can respond more quickly and find justice for victims.
Right. Prevention and planning.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk about, Director Bailey, talk about the org chart at the FBI. How are you looking from a staffing perspective, and why would someone want to join the Bureau?
Well, I hope people that want to join an institution of excellence with a legacy of excellence want to join the Bureau. Look, we've got rigorous and exacting standards, and we're not going to water those standards down. But what we are going to do is take people who can rise to that challenge and that occasion and put them in the premier federal law enforcement agency in the United States. And I want folks to know that we have gotten back to our core function of fighting crime and defending the homeland and protecting the Constitution under the President's leadership, under Director Patel's leadership. That's our mission, and that's what we're doing. Again, we are pushing resources out of headquarters into the field. We have 56 now field offices across the United States of America, to include here in Jackson, Mississippi. And we want to populate those offices with intelligence analysts, support staff, professional staff, and agents who can go out and fight violent crime, defend the homeland, and protect the Constitution.
Law and order, certainly, that is a core function of government, in my view, and you cannot have a thriving society. You can't exercise your freedom. You can't pursue opportunity. You can't live the American dream unless we have safe streets, your stuff's protected, and your life and the lives of your loved ones are protected.
Yeah, look, it's a simple formula. The rights in the Constitution come from God, not man. The Constitution exists to protect us from the government, and the government exists 100%. To protect our rights. And if that's not the focus, then we've gone astray. President Trump's leadership has refocused focused the entire executive branch of government on those core missions.
Totally true. So General, assembled here, as you told us earlier, are law enforcement officers, criminal justice folks from all across the state of Mississippi. We're second to none in this area, as Director Bailey said, right?
Thank you. Absolutely. We are leading the charge, and it's because of the collaboration, the team effort. At the end of the day, no one says, I did this, I did that. My department, my agency, it's always about what did we do? Who did we help? How did we make a difference? And to your point, too, we've got to have safer communities. And as we're doing that in the state of Mississippi, and with safer communities comes great education, great economic development. It all comes and is built on that first pillar, as you just talked about, Deputy Bailey, about having those rights, protecting the Constitution and making people feel safe.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. In the FBI's integration at the state and local level in providing that expertise, those resources, that's critical, is it not, Director Bailey?
It is, but again, under the 10th Amendment, so much work gets done at the state level. We have to respect and support that and find that area where the federal government of limited authority fits within the system. And so it's about teamwork.
That was the intentional design of our system. The founders knew what they were doing when they came up with that idea of federalism. So we have enjoyed visiting with FBI Co-Deputy Director Andrew Bailey and, of course, the Attorney General of Mississippi, Lynn Fitch. Director Bailey, General Fitch, thanks for coming on. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, sir.
We're coming right back here at the Refuge in Flowood for the Mississippi Public Safety Summit with Scott Payne, a retired FBI agent. Stay with us.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Mississippi Public Safety Summit. We're in Flowood, Mississippi at the Sheraton in Flowood, the Refuge Golf Course out the window here. Rhino back in the SuperTalk Mississippi headquarters. We're waiting on our next guest, Mr. Payne, a retired FBI agent. In the meantime, yesterday on the show, of course, we talked about NVIDIA announcing earnings after the bell. They had blowout quarter, both top and bottom line. Rhino, I believe they may have surpassed the prior quarterly net profit record. They had an operating income of $53 billion for the quarter. It's just mind-boggling. And a net income of $58 billion. As I recall, it was Warren Buffett's company several years ago that had some sort of crazy blowout quarter and set that high mark record that has stood for a long time. So $53 billion operating income for the graphics processing unit, the chips that are used for artificial intelligence. And I saw a great interview with Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, this morning, discussing the quarter, but more importantly, discussing the outlook. And it not only was fascinating, it's exciting when you think about the demand for the technology. I also saw a great interview right after that with the CEO of Lockheed Martin. It's just incredible the way that artificial intelligence and really super sophisticated computing is being incorporated into this country's weaponry. And now creating a whole new series of anti-drone technology that's all done with using electronics. It's electronic warfare. No shots are fired to essentially destroy these drones, locate them, enemy drones we're talking about, and requires no humans in an airborne airplane, and it doesn't require the shooting of any missiles or bombs or bullets. I think that's the future of warfare. And he was talking about their partnership with NVIDIA, as a matter of fact. Now, a company like Lockheed Martin, of course, has a very expansive premise-based environment that supports all of their internally owned and operated IT technology, their infrastructure, which of course incorporates lots of NVIDIA chips and chipsets from other manufacturers as well, depending on the application and the workload. But just fascinating hearing them talk about how technology is really infused across all of our weapon systems, and it's absolutely essential that we maintain superiority in that regard. Otherwise, we will be subject, and it's huge risk, and we will be threatened by China and others who aren't slowing down in the development of this technology. I started thinking about that because of all the people across the country, including some in Mississippi, that are protesting this data center build out. And I think, first of all, most of what they complain about is erroneous. It's just not factual. And then secondly, I don't think they realize that this is absolutely essential to our security, to our prosperity, to our position as the global superpower that we are. We cannot cede that high ground to China. That doesn't mean we need to go destroy the environment and disrupt the quality of life we enjoy in this country and in Mississippi, but it means we need to be thoughtful about it, and we just need to regulate in a way that doesn't make it impossible or make it so expensive that there will be no investments, or that it takes so long that we get outrun by China and others. There are ways of doing this thoughtfully, methodically, responsibly, and I think we're doing that in Mississippi. But Ryan, I'm seeing these people out that are part of these little Mississippi anti-data center groups that are contending that we're destroying farmland. There are no
because
data
they're
centers.
Stupid.
Okay, well, of the 7 sites we have in Mississippi, none of those are on farmland. I don't know why they say that. And again, I point out it's 5,000 acres for about $85 billion of investment. We have 31 million acres of land, the area of the state of Mississippi. You're talking less than 0.02% of the land. It's just nothing. And you've seen the protest of this really large, what would be the largest campus in the country in Utah. Kevin O'Leary, of course, a big player in that. And now we've learned that the major groups behind all the protests in Utah, on this site in Utah, are a bunch of dang socialist communist organizations. I was sort of blown away by it. Some of these groups, if I can find some of those names, it blew me away. But you can look at the names of them and tell, oh yeah, this clearly what this is are organizations that are aligned with the Marxist and the socialist in this country, such as one of them is a big protester, the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Oh yeah, World Peace Council. How about that one? The World Peace Council. The Cuban Institute of Friendship with Peoples. The Freedom Road Socialist Organization. These folks are the people that are primarily funding all this protesting. I'm not saying there aren't people outside of that group that are just the local townspeople, but they should know that's who they're aligning with. Is that not important, Rhino, to understand that you're actually aligning with people with whom I'm pretty sure you don't agree on anything? You consider yourself a liberty-loving American, yet you're in the same boat with these people who what they seek to do is destroy our economy. They know that this is critical to growing our economy and maintaining our position as the world's economic superpower, and they want to slow it down. That's period. That's what they're trying to do here. So
ignorance and zealotry make strange bedfellows.
That is a very much a good point. And, I get it. Folks are concerned about their power bills and their water and all that sort of stuff, but they're not considering the benefits. And I'm not saying you should have to sacrifice in that regard whatsoever. And that's why I'm proud of how we did it here in Mississippi, that there are no situations where there's going to be a spike in electricity rates because of these investments, because of these facilities. We're certainly not draining the water out of the state. That's a complete fallacy and a hoax. There is no noise pollution. I agree, and I understand there's problems with respect to, there's noise problems with respect to the XAI facility in DeSoto County. That's because Elon Musk is in a hurry, and he's building gas turbines, and they make the noise. But it's also understood that when that construction period is over and those things are online in normal operation, that the decibel level will decrease considerably. So just something to keep in mind there. And with respect to the pollution, it's not pollution. There's no pollution being created by the data centers. What they're talking about is the same old anti-fossil fuels people that don't like electric generation plants because they produce pollution. So these are the same anti-fossil fuels people. That's what this is all about.
Like I said yesterday, it's the big bundle of idiots rolling downhill, bashing their head against the ground every time every time they roll.
Gosh,
but
man.
It all started with the anti-nuclear crap.
Oh yeah, and now you've seen a Gallup poll. Speaking of that, you've seen a Gallup poll recently that indicates that people would rather have a nuclear power plant in their backyard than they would a data center. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's because all of the asinine talking points the anti-nuclear people have put out over the last couple generations have been refuted to the point where people no longer believe them. So they found their new ideology. Instead of being anti-nuclear now, because they know they can't stop that, they become anti-data center.
Okay. So it's the same ilk. They've just traded causes, right?
Yeah, they're just worthless wastes of space. They just need a cause to make them feel like they actually matter.
Oh, my gosh. And the other thing I saw is one site that's got like this sign that says no data centers, and it looks like it's on a roadside with kind of a rural background, except it's all done using AI. Oh, my gosh. Oh, geez. And then it's posted on social media, which, of course, is powered by data centers and AI. Just absolutely incredible. We're at the Mississippi Public Safety Summit in Flowood. It's Phil Chalmers next, a retired criminal profiler. Stay with us.
From the Seabrook.com. Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio that's been relocated today to the Sheraton Refuge in Flowood, Mississippi. We're here for the Mississippi Public Safety Summit. That's what's going on. So, in the past, we have heard about the possibility of rate decreases, interest rate decrements, but now it appears that the prediction markets and the futures markets at least also think, I should say, that we may be looking at interest rate increases as a result of this very sticky inflation we're enduring. The president says that he's put another red line in the sand with respect to Iran for the weekend. We'll see what happens. They say they have informed the United States that they ain't giving up their uranium. So I think that's a non-starter for the president. Still sort of feel like that ultimately we're going to have to invade the nation of Iran. I just feel like that's where we're headed, to seize this uranium in the country and get it out of the country. I really do feel like that's where we are. But I'm not really sure what's going to happen there, but it's concerning that we can't seem to get a breakthrough. I think Americans are ready to see the price of gas at the pump decline. I'm also concerned about how the price of gas may affect our state budget as well, because that's something that we spend a lot of money on. Diesel in particular as well. School districts all will be likely struggling with that increased expense unless we see it pull back. And so hopefully that is going to happen. But at this point, the president said he's not happy with the offer from Iran because the goal is to eliminate their nuclear capability totally. And that just doesn't seem to be anything they're willing to do. And I'm afraid it's going to require force at the end of the day to do that. We'll see what goes on there. But certainly the high prices are an issue. And that is figuring into the midterm elections, and it will be a factor. It's just a matter of whether or not Americans can stomach the high prices and realize that it's still in their best interest to support Republican conservative candidates over the loony Democrats. That the Democrats certainly aren't going to fix that problem. They're going to make it worse, as a matter of fact. So,
well, if the latest Quinnipiac poll is to be believed, Democrats are going to have to win solely on the backs of female voters. Democrat politicians have an 18% favorability amongst all males.
Unbelievable. So, you got to believe, though, that the price, the inflation situation will be a factor going forward. And the Democrats will pounce all over it, and they will, of course, try to make it into something it's not. And Republicans will be blamed for every problem in the country, if not on the planet, and those policies. And their solution, of course, is more government, which caused the problems that we all are dealing with right now. By the way, and to a great extent, including the inflation. Because remember that when we get these inflation reports, that's an increase over the prior period. So it's not like we're going back to the pricing pre-Biden inflation. Biden's terrible policies is what got it going and spiked it. And that's where it got legs. And so now it's even worse. And of course, it's stabilized considerably since President Trump took office. And that's the concern, is the price of oil continues to rise, and that's figuring into the price of all goods and services that we consume. And that would be a problem. So, Thomas and Greenwood, of course, never, ever saying anything positive. Not ever in my 6 years of doing this. Can I ever remember you saying anything positive? He wants to know what Republican is conservative. It's a matter of how you define conservatism, and there's no consensus on that whatsoever. None. And I think that is a problem, is that we don't come together and agree on what are those principles. So, yes, there's no doubt. He just sent me a poll. I'm well aware of this, where there is a disapproval of 61% overall of the president's job performance, and it all comes down to the price of gas. That is about 90% of the influence on that number. But the president made the decision that it was worth risking the increase in fuel, which is not popular. It was worth that risk to rid the world of the Iran nuclear threat. Simple as that. And if he's able to achieve that, and he will do something that no other president has even dreamed of attempting, much less had any sort of a viable plan to attain. So he will go down in history maybe as the greatest peacemaker of all time. Peacemaker in the form of preventing what could be catastrophic type consequences as a result of Iran using nuclear weapons, because as soon as they get them, they will. I'm convinced of that. And that'd blow the world up. Johnny West Point says, what if we do like World War II and drop an atomic bomb on the site where the uranium is? Well, we just had the Operation Midnight Hammer that was thought to totally destroy their nuclear capability, but we've subsequently learned that they have some enriched uranium stored somewhere else. So I'm not really sure what the proper approach to that would be, whether or not we're not going to go drop an atomic bomb, Johnny. That's just not going to happen. This country is not going to use, I don't believe, nuclear weaponry to eliminate nuclear weapons. I don't see that happening. I really don't. And that's why I think there need to be some other means to achieve that goal. I don't know what that is, but that's what it needs to be. Paula Meridian says the crybabies need to sit down and shut up, ride this out, and it'll be better in the long run. It's just a hard sell, Paul. When families are struggling to make ends meet, they already were, and this just made it worse. It's just a hard sell. They can't connect the dots. They don't see it. And really at this point, I think the bigger problem is, when does it end? And we had Mark Vargas on the program yesterday talking about that. And it's rather difficult to understand how the objectives are met, to define that, to measure that. The president said totally eliminate their nuclear ability and their nuclear ambitions, and they've got to agree to call it off. I just don't know how we get there at this point, or whether or not we can. So, this is on the C Spire text line, Director of National Intelligence disagreed with the war based on the estimation of Iran not being a nuclear threat. The director of the National Counterterrorism Center resigned for the same reason. Address that. I don't want to speak on behalf of the Director of National Intelligence. It looks to me like there's a whole lot of other people that seem to feel differently. That what we do know is this: maybe there's not an imminent threat today, but I think that you're awfully naive in thinking that Iran doesn't have nuclear ambitions and will not continue their development efforts and would not hesitate to use such nuclear power if they had it. That's my belief. And so I think this is preemptive as much as anything. Was it an imminent threat? Probably not. I get that. But we don't want to wait until it's too late. I think that's where the problem comes in. Yeah, Paul Meridian says, I agree, no plan around, and let's try to get it over with as fast as possible. And that's what I'm hoping for as well. It's just difficult to make that happen. I mean, that's what we're dealing with right now. And the president continues to put lines in the sand, and the regime does not meet those demands, and so we keep on going, and that's where we are today. So hopefully, Mose says, Gerard, my hope is that the Arab states that Iran has been attacking will invade Iran. Yeah, it's just not in their nature either. I hear you, Mose. That'd be great. It'd be great if somebody else would take care of this problem, somebody closer to them. I totally agree with you in that respect. It shouldn't all fall down to the United States, and that's a problem. We're going to come right back, Thomas. After Tuesday, being conservative is secondary to being in line with Trump. But hell, no one will admit that Trump is not conservative. If he was conservative, I've had way less complaints. Okay, Thomas. We're coming right back with the Element Wealth studio here at the Refuge for the Mississippi Public Safety Summit.
Hello, we interrupt this program
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge. Huge news. Huge news. Huge.
You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We're at the Sheraton in Flowood, Mississippi for the Mississippi Public Safety Summit. That's where we relocated the Element Wealth studio today. We're pleased to welcome now Angel Myers-McElrath. She is the DA for the 19th Circuit Court District. Angel, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So what do you think about this summit? This is a gathering of all these folks in the law enforcement world, and that's police officers and state troopers and folks like you in the justice system all assembled in one room.
It's incredible. And I was so impressed with the agenda. A commitment to continuing to train, continuing to learn, to build relationships, because we need each other. And it's been an incredible program for the last couple of days.
Yeah. Well, it seems like that it's always well attended.
Yes.
And, of course, usually these events, I come from the private sector, the business world, the greatest value and takeaway is the networking with the other people, right?
Yes. Introducing yourself, meeting your counterparts, making connections, learning what other agencies are doing that is working well.
Yeah. And sometimes what's not to avoid, right?
Exactly.
You learn as much about that. So,
that's right.
All right, so I'm told by a little birdie here before the segment that you're receiving an award today. Is that right?
That's what I hear.
Okay.
That's the rumor.
Well, tell us about that.
Well, I was notified that I will be receiving the Prosecutor of the Year award, and I'm very humbled by it.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
It's a reflection of the team that I have. God has blessed me with an incredible team who love what we do, love the people we serve, and I'm very grateful for that.
So I got to tell you, the judicial system in our country is a bit complex.
It is.
Exactly what do you do in the circuit court?
Oh, okay.
Explain the difference in the courts. I have folks on that come from that world. I always ask them to kind of give us a quick rundown of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in the circuit court, as a prosecutor, we're handling all of the felonies.
Okay.
So that's anything that can be punished by a year or more in prison.
Okay.
And so we're in other courts at times too, the lower courts for hearings and preliminaries. But in circuit court, it's all the crimes that are punishable by more than a year.
Okay.
Okay. And so and that can go from capital murder to a larceny, a grand larceny.
Well, we'd like to make you kind of like the Maytag repairman where you're bored, don't have anything to do. But unfortunately, we have a lot of activity, and you have to get involved to protect our people.
That's right. I wish that there was not a need for the work that we do, but I'm so glad it's me and my team that get to do it. I tell people all the time that, if we're not able to get justice for someone, or if there's someone that we can't get what they should get in the system, it's not going to be because we didn't do all the things.
Okay.
We're going to do every single thing, and so I'm glad it's me. I hate that there's a need for it, but I'm glad it's me and my team.
As a prosecutor, what, if any, do you need from our government with respect to changing laws, amendment to laws, new laws, eliminating laws? Of course, that's a big part of our legislature. The Judicial A, Judicial B committees that are constantly taking up lots of legislation every year, it seems.
Absolutely. And so I'm a member of the Mississippi Prosecutors Association. I'm a board member, and we work closely with the legislature, with Bryce Wiggins, Jeremy England, Kevin Horan, all we have an incredible slate of legislators that understand the needs in the criminal justice system, and we have had success in correcting laws. So, for example, the child abuse law, it's the Lonnie Smith Act. It's named after a child that Tony Lawrence and I prosecuted the mother for abuse, and so we have a good relationship, so we can relate to them and tell them, hey, we need this. Here's an area of the law that we're having difficulty in. We had some juvenile justice matters that needed to be taken up with respect to the Miller versus Alabama decision, and they did it. It took a little time, but they listened to us. They can't give us all the money we want, right? But they can't give anybody all the money they want. But they listen, and I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, no doubt that there are constantly things that come up, and of course, our world changes, our society changes, and sometimes that necessitates new law to address those changes.
That's right.
And so you guys consult with them, right?
We do.
You advise our legislators on that.
We do. They reach out to us, and we communicate with them. So as the Prosecutors Association, we typically have a legislative agenda that's set each year. And it's things like there's a loophole in this law we need to address.
Okay.
Or, we've got an area that needs more assistant district attorneys. And so, our salaries, our employee limits, all of those are set by the legislature.
Mm-hmm.
And so we will present with them, here's what our needs are. And then, of course, we have Stephen Clay's firm.
Yeah.
And he keeps us fully informed on other things that are going on because, there's thousands of bills dropped a year and not that many come out. And so we're monitoring that and trying to make sure that people that are making those decisions understand all of the dominoes that happen.
Totally makes sense. Appreciate you coming on, Angel.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and congratulations on the big award.
You take care. Thank you so much.
Angel Myers, Michael Rath, DA for the 19th Circuit Court in Mississippi. Folks, we're stepping aside for a break. It's time for Fox News and SuperTalk News. On the other side, we've got Matt Haley, the sheriff of Harrison County. Stay with us.
Your of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays. Once again, we are live at the Sheraton Refuge in Flowood, Mississippi. We're here for the big Mississippi Public Safety Summit on this
Friday.
It's our pleasure to welcome now the Sheriff of Harrison County, Mississippi, Matt Haley. Sheriff Haley, thanks for coming on.
Glad to be here.
So what do you think about this event when you guys gather up your peers, I should say, and law enforcement? You've got lots of judicial and justice people here, the Attorney General and their team, so everyone involved in protecting the citizens. That's one way to put it, I guess.
That's right. This is a great event that Sean Tyndall and Lynn Fitch put on every year. It's a lot of networking that goes on. They have a lot of vendors here. They're able to bring us new technology and things that are coming out. It's just a great event. Tons of speakers. Our first night here, they had Travis Howes here, and I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to him speak. He's very impactful, and there was a lot of people that came here just to hear him speak.
Yeah. I'm glad you pointed that out because I haven't said anything about that for the first hour of the show, but you walk through these long halls that are adjacent to the big grand ballroom there. Lots of vendors that provide just a range of goods and services to support law enforcement.
Technology now is evolving at such a rapid rate, and it's good that we're able to come and see what's coming out because as law enforcement we got to keep up with the times.
Yeah, well, it's a function of staying ahead of the bad guys too, right? Because they've got lots of good technology too.
It is, and again, it's constantly evolving, constantly.
And then of course you've got still have the constraints of limited resources, and you got to make your people more productive. And if you can get technology in their hands so they can do more work and get to the issues on a faster basis, that's a win-win for the people.
Yeah, we all do the best we can with what we've got.
How long have you been involved in law enforcement, Sheriff?
I started with Harrison County in 1997 as a correctional officer.
Okay. Wow, as a correctional officer, and then shifted into direct law enforcement like this?
Yep, direct law enforcement.
Okay. Well,
yep. I started under Joe Price as a correctional officer, and then went from there to patrol, to narcotics, K-9, criminal interdiction, federal task force, a lot. Done a lot over the course of my career.
How is crime trending in Harrison County?
You know, I tell people all the time that the coast is exploding in population. I don't have to tell you that.
Sure.
It really is. But the good thing about the coast is it's still small town. You know, no matter how much it grows, it's still small town. As far as the population and the way things are on the coast, the crime rate is low in Harrison County, and I'm proud to say that.
Yeah. Do you find, I've always wondered the fact that you are on the coast and so it can tend to be a little more transient area. Does that perhaps increase the prospect of crime that you have to be aware of? I mean, I don't know that that's as big a deal today as it used to be, but thinking about drug traffic, for example.
Well, yes and no. If you're talking about the transient population, they come to the coast for the climate and for the resources, just like they would come anywhere else. And as it grows, that population grows, and we're as a team we're working to try to figure out how to combat that.
Okay. Well, we passed law this past legislative session that basically makes it a crime to be in our state illegally if you're not a citizen within our state.
Right.
Is this something that you think you're going to find some folks in the county perhaps that you'll have to act on?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't doubt that as well. I think that's an issue across the country with the borders wide open the way they were under the prior administration.
And I'll say, our legislatures, they really do a great job as far as progressing things.
Yeah.
So they're very helpful, especially when it comes to law enforcement.
Well, I'm glad you said that, and I believe that as well. So,
a lot of people don't realize it, especially on the coast. I can't speak for the rest of the state, but a lot of our legislators are prior law enforcement.
Yeah,
a lot of people don't realize that.
That's a good point.
They are, and a lot of them I'm very thankful for that I policed with a lot of them.
Okay.
So I've got a great relationship with our guys on the coast for sure.
Well, do you sometimes pick the phone up, and call them, and say things I need you to take a look at?
Yeah, all the time. And there's things that that they do, and I may call, and they may like what I have to say and not like what I have to say, but we're in the end we're all friends.
Well, what about the other direction? Do they call you for counsel and consultation?
Absolutely. They'll call and say, "Hey, let me run this by you and tell me what you think."
Well, that makes sense. You're dealing with it every day. Yeah. You're on the ground.
Absolutely.
You're on the streets. And
absolutely.
Sitting in that Capitol, you don't always have that perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, gaining that insight, I think, is valuable input to the legislative process.
For sure.
Yeah.
They don't think they know it all, nor do I.
Yeah, and I believe you're right about that. In my experience of working with lots of those folks as well, I think that's absolutely right. And I think they know that they got to get out and got to get information from those that are in the field.
Yeah,
that know what's going on.
And they do well at that.
Yeah. Is there anything in particular, Sheriff, that you'd like to see the legislature address in the next legislative session? Anything you've talked to them about?
As bad as I hate to say it, and we talk about this every time, it's radar for sheriffs. It never seems to pass.
We kind of had an attempt at that this year.
Yeah, when we've tried it again, and for the life of me, I just don't get it. To me, the best thing to do now in today's times is to pass something and put it back in the Board of Supervisors' hands. Let each county decide whether they're going to do it or not.
Yeah.
To me, that makes the most sense.
Interesting. Yeah, well.
Eventually, I feel like something's going to happen. Just, time will tell when.
I'm curious as to why that is the case now. Why is it that the sheriffs outside of the cities and I guess the interstates with the state troopers?
Coming up in law enforcement, I was always told that it was based on population, but that's just not necessarily true.
Based on population, okay.
I learned later on that that's not the case.
Yeah.
That's not the case. It just can't seem to get through for some reason.
How's the recruiting going?
Recruiting's going great. I can't speak for all the rest of the agencies on the coast, but as far as Harrison County, we're doing well. We're not full, but we're not far from full.
Okay, well that's good. Yeah. So, any particular needs you have from an organizational perspective? I know that there was lots of concerns about the new tier and the public employees retirement system. We had some changes in that this past year to address.
My hat goes off again to the legislatures. They seen that was going to be a big problem and understood it, and they made some changes, and I think that's going to help. And my heart tells me they're not done making changes, but we'll just have to see what happens with that.
I think that's probably true.
They all knew that we were going to run into a problem with recruitment as far as the retirement goes, and
but addressed it.
They addressed it.
Yeah. So I think that's a good thing. Anything from a federal perspective? We had, of course, a change in administrations a year and a half ago. Is that changed anything in your world in any way?
I wouldn't say in our world. No, it hasn't changed anything at all. No, not at all.
Okay. Well, hopefully one thing is we're allowing fewer criminals to cross the border. I think most of us agree with the legal immigration into this country, but when the borders are wide open, unfortunately, lots of bad folks come across.
Exactly. And we work well with our federal partners. We've got a big criminal interdiction unit that works in Harrison County. We're number one in the state right now as far as seizures and arrests in Harrison County. And I try to tell other law enforcement agencies that have interstates running through their county or their city, if we all do our part, it's going to make a difference as far as working the interstate. A lot of criminals and a lot of drugs and a lot of other things come across that border. So it's important to have people working those highways and interstates.
And to your point, we talked to the co-deputy director of the FBI, Andrew Bailey, today, of course, who's here. How do you work with the FBI? How's that work out?
Again, our relationships are wonderful on the coast. Anytime we need help with any of our federal counterparts, they always step up.
It's pretty important to get to the meat of the matter, which is addressing the crime.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely it is.
Don't need to be, as I like to say, John Wayne. You don't have to take the hill by yourself. That happens in the movies. It don't happen in the real world.
I'll take help any day of the week.
I love it.
If somebody's going to offer it up.
Sheriff, appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks for your service. Sheriff Matt Haley, the Sheriff of Harrison County, Mississippi. We're taking a break right now, coming right back with Baxter Kruger. He's the United States Attorney for the Mississippi Southern District. Stay with us.
Nowadays,
Okay, is everybody ready?
I'm ready.
Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Sheraton. We're in Flowood, Mississippi today for the Mississippi Public Safety Summit. We're pleased to welcome now Baxter Kruger, United States Attorney for Mississippi's Southern District. Baxter, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Gerard. It's great for you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're glad you're here. So how long have you been in this role now?
Let's see. I got sworn in as the interim in December 1st of last year, and then we went through the confirmation process, and I got confirmed on December 17th by the Senate, and the President signed the commission on December 23rd. And then we
awesome.
They got to scramble right there 2 days before Christmas to find a judge to swear me in again.
Well, first, congratulations, and well-deserved. I think you're a perfect selection for this role. We're glad you're here and serving in this role in Mississippi.
Well, thank you so much, Gerard. I mean, I'm honored and humbled to even be considered for it, and I'm happy to be here. I lead a great office. It's a fantastic team of prosecutors and staff. We cover the lower 45 counties of Mississippi as the Southern District, and then my counterpart up north is a guy named Scott Leary, who's another fantastic lifelong prosecutor. And we've got a great relationship there, and I think that's what this event out here, the Public Safety Summit, is really all about.
Yeah, no doubt. So, Baxter, I think it goes without saying, but saying the court system and the jurisdictions and so forth in the United States are complex. They're complex for a reason. Tell the folks what sort of cases end up in the U.S. courts versus what goes through state courts.
So we have jurisdiction over all federal criminal matters. So anything that's entitled 18 U.S.C. 21, there's other code sections out there. That's everything from narcotics trafficking, child exploitation, internet crimes, to maritime issues that exist right there off the coast, to national security and national defense issues. So it's all encompassing criminally. We also have a civil section where we represent the United States in any civil litigation where the United States is a party, whether we're being sued or we are pursuing things civilly on behalf of an agency or the United States.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. So what sort of cases are on the docket right now that you can tell us about?
Well, we just had a guilty verdict, or guilty plea rather, in a child exploitation case. We've got another child exploitation case going to trial here in a couple weeks. Okay. And a few like that. We had a big narcotics case that went to trial, got a guilty verdict on it a few weeks ago. Public corruption, obviously right there on the radar. It's coming, bigger case. I think it's been covered by the media. Starting in July, middle into July. I think it's the 13th is the opening statements, or when they're going to start seating a jury.
Interesting. Okay, so then your team goes to work, prosecutes those crimes or those criminals, I guess, or they would be the defendants at that point, right?
That's right.
That have been charged with these various crimes, and they flow through the federal court, and it's your job to argue on behalf of the people in that respect.
That's absolutely right, and we try to take every single case the same way and argue it to the same level of quality. We have, like I said, these partnerships is where we wind up drawing a lot of these cases from, and I was able to give an award today to a Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics agent, our America 250 Hometown Hero Award. And that's because he was recognized in that role because of the hard work that he's done to ensure the great partnership that our office and other federal law enforcement has with Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics, Bureau of Investigation, all DPS. Obviously, I came from Homeland, got to work for Commissioner Tyndall. And we've got a phenomenal partnership with DPS. We've got a phenomenal partnership with our AG's office, as well as the DA's, most of the DA's offices in the state and other law enforcement entities that are around, which is why we're here represented at this event.
So you don't really prosecute these cases in a silo. You got to work with other people, as you just indicated, and other agencies.
Absolutely. I mean, we all have the same mission. We're all geared towards public safety and doing justice on behalf of the people. And it does a traffic stop typically doesn't involve an FBI agent to bring us a federal crime. Right. You have to be able to work with your local law enforcement, with state law enforcement, with your feds, and everybody there. We all make up part of this patchwork quilt.
Gotcha. What do you think about this summit when all the folks involved in fighting crime and more importantly in protecting American citizens and those in the state of Mississippi specifically?
Well, it's fantastic. I mean, you get it's every year it seems like it grows and grows with the amount of people who want to come and participate. And I know that Commissioner and General Fitch wanted to do something at the state level to bring our locals and our state and federal law enforcement together. And I think this is the fourth year they've done a pretty good job, year-over-year increase.
Yeah, it certainly is well attended, and we were just talking to Sheriff Matt Haley in Harrison County. You just look at the vendors that are wall-to-wall throughout the building here, this area around the ballroom, and these are people that provide goods and services that are used mainly by law enforcement so they can better do their job.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also have a number of folks here that can highlight their investigative skills and techniques and systems and equipment that they have that may be unique to their office that otherwise if you weren't here, you wouldn't know about it.
Yeah.
And speaking of silos, breaking those silos down, part of it is DPS has a variety of tools that are accessible by both federal and local law enforcement that would otherwise be inaccessible due to cost.
Yeah.
And we've been, at least when I was there, and I'm sure that Commissioner is still pushing through this along with the rest of the colonels, of making sure that any of the investigative capabilities of the Department of Public Safety are available to any and all law enforcement in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And it like you said, it's always so well attended. The Commissioner and the Attorney General, I think, do a great job of promoting this and bringing all of the ecosystem together, so to speak, that's involved in this.
And they tend to find these fantastic speakers as well that come in and tell their story. And there's more than just a listening post. There's a lot to learn. I know that there's CLEs that you can gain from this summit that particularly for lawyers.
Yep.
But the speakers that they bring in, they have topics that are relevant to everybody that's here, and we can learn something from that, and that's what this is really all about.
Don't want to get too political with you here, Baxter, but is there an issue where you were, of course, appointed and sworn in under this president, the Trump administration, but there are people throughout the United States government and the Justice Department that came from prior administrations, I guess is a way to put it, or were in place for a long time, legacy, if you will. Is there a conflict there, or do you feel like they get along pretty well?
I don't have that issue in our office. We probably, and we definitely have people of different political persuasions.
Well, sure.
But we're all there for the same reason.
Okay.
We swear in, take the same constitutional oath to defend our country against enemies, both foreign and domestic, and to bear truth and faith and allegiance to the same. And we execute that oath every single day and uphold the law in Mississippi and in the Southern District and do justice on their behalf.
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear, and I totally believe that, but it's no secret that some aspects of our government have been politicized, have been weaponized. There's just no place in that when we're talking about the justice system.
There's not. We've got a job to do, and that's to enforce the law. And anything short of that is not acceptable.
Yeah, makes total sense. How will the fact that the state just passed a law that makes it illegal to be in this state if you're not a citizen, that's already the case within the country, will that cross over to you? I mean, already you have the issue of illegals in this country. They're breaking the law, and federal law.
Mm-hmm. So our office, when it comes to the piece of illegal immigration, we prosecute criminal illegal immigration cases and crimes that are associated therewith. ICE and the Department of Homeland Security is who deals with your illegal reentry folks or folks that are here illegally. And that is going to give state law enforcement, local law enforcement a little bit more authority on their own to find these folks and to bring them over to the federal folks to move them through.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. I didn't know if there was any sort of crossover, integration, or how that might affect you, because if a state level law enforcement officer arrests someone under state law, well, they're also breaking federal law in that case, right?
Yeah. Well, typically, state law is broad. Federal law is narrowed intentionally. You often will find where you have state law that is broken as well as federal law, and you have an opportunity to take it to either avenue.
Okay. And I know sometimes you have situations that are across state lines, interstate, and those end up in federal court.
Absolutely,
right?
Interstate commerce is a predicate in a number of federal crimes.
Okay, even especially in the business world, right?
Absolutely,
have a lot of that. Yeah.
I mean, when you start talking about white collar, there's a lot of that.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we appreciate you coming on, Baxter, and congratulations on this new role as the United States Attorney for Mississippi's Southern District. Appreciate you coming on.
Hey, thank you so much, Gerard. I really enjoyed it.
Enjoyed it as well. We're coming right back with Sean Tyndall. He's the Commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Public Safety. Stay with us.
Sing a little bit of these working man blues. This song for the working man.
From the Seabrook Mississippi.
Properly set. All
controls before recording.
All systems go.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Sheraton in Flowood, Mississippi. We're here for the Mississippi Public Safety Summit. We're pleased to welcome now Sean Tindall. He's the commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Public Safety. Commissioner, thanks for coming on.
Glad to be here. Always good to kick it off with a little Bachman turn.
There you go, man. Appreciate Rhino for that. So, a great summit, well attended. Obviously, the corridors here are lined with folks that are involved in law enforcement, in the justice system, in our state, in our country. You and the Attorney General do a great job of assembling all these folks. And, you know, I think there's as much to be gained from just networking with their peers and colleagues in an environment like this as much as anything, right?
Absolutely. And, you know, when you need something, it's good to have those contacts to call. But, you know, one of the things when I came in, there always seemed to be this divide and silos within the Mississippi law enforcement community between sheriffs, chiefs, state law enforcement, federal law enforcement. And I've always just kind of had this saying, it's really hard not to like somebody once you get to know them. Yeah. And so this opportunity to network, spend some time with each other, and you might not like somebody from afar, but when you break bread with them and spend time with them, you get to understand each other a little more. And so hopefully it breaks down those silos, and what that does create is better public safety initiatives in Mississippi. And look, I think ultimately the results are there. You know, U.S. News and World Reports does its national rankings on a variety of issues. A lot of people don't look at the public safety, but we have moved up in public safety to around number 20 in the nation. But the results are there. Again, homicides are down, overdose deaths are down. Even things like traffic fatalities, we're doing better. I mean, it's just overall, public safety has moved in the right direction in Mississippi.
And we had earlier on the program a co-deputy director of the FBI, Andrew Bailey. Pleased to have him in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah, and Mississippi roots. I did not know that. He's got a cabin in Neshoba County, and
found that out as well.
So very fascinating guy, and has really done great things for his home state of Missouri, and you know, now doing it for the country.
Yeah. So the Department of Public Safety, you guys just took occupation of new location, right? New building.
We did.
New headquarters.
Moved into the new headquarters. 11 divisions of the Department of Public Safety, all of them under one roof for the first time, which again, to me, is a great enhancement for public safety. When we're sharing information, we're sharing intelligence and working together. It really sets the stage for the future of Mississippi.
Desperately needed, was it not?
Much needed. The facility we were in, was getting to its end of life. We'd been there about 50 years, and at the time it was built, you know, the Department of Public Safety really just had the Highway Patrol and Driver Services.
Yep.
Well, I mean, since then we've added 9 other divisions, and so we needed a headquarters that could handle the growth that we've experienced.
Talk about some of the improvements that the department has made of late, Commissioner.
Just across the board, driver services, they're still doing a great job with the wait times, getting people in and out. MBI and MBN and Homeland Security and our forensics lab are about to merge. One of the things that we talk about as conservatives is trying to shrink government, lower administrative cost. I've got 11 divisions, so we've done some mergers there where we're trying to consolidate our units that have common themes. And so we're going to have one MBI in Mississippi. It's going to have a narcotics division. It's going to have a criminal investigation bureau. It's going to have Homeland Security and the forensics lab. But why that was important, digging deep into our budgets, I realized that MBN was paying for a case management software and MBI was paying for the same case management software. We were both spending $40,000 in each of those divisions for that software, where if we just were buying it once through one unit, one division, we'd spend $40,000. So it's going to result in cost savings, and my goal with those cost savings is to take that money and direct it towards the front lines for better equipment and better salaries for those men and women that every day impress me, putting it on the line. We sometimes walk past danger. We sometimes run from danger. First responders run to the danger and try to make our life safer. So I want to try to make sure all those savings that we get, we put it towards the front line so that we can recruit the best and brightest. The DPS about to graduate Cadet Class 70 of the Mississippi Highway Patrol. We talk a lot about Mississippi back in the blue. Governor Reeves has had a MHP cadet class graduate every single year of his administration. That has not happened since Governor Fordyce was in office. And so, again, the realities are there on the support of public safety and the leadership that does. So.
Yeah. I'm so glad you pointed out just the recognition of some duplicity there that you eliminated with the case management software. I think there's some other opportunities in government as well for that. But that makes sense in the consolidation process that you guys undertook.
It does, and in a public safety aspect. We came to find out that the Bureau of Narcotics had intel analysts that wouldn't always communicate with the Homeland Security analysts that wasn't communicating with the NBI analysts. So now all those analysts will be working together, sharing that intel, sharing that information.
Yeah.
So in the future, we want to see a statewide real-time crime center housed at the Department of Public Safety. And just another furtherance of all that information we can gather and filter in one place. I met with the director of FBI. I know he's coming on next. We're talking about gang information and trying to run that through our fusion center so that we can get all that information consolidated in one place and, again, get results for the people of Mississippi.
Just as in my conversation with Director Bailey, the criminals, the crooks, the bad guys, they continue to increase their level of sophistication too.
Absolutely. And I was asked, well, why are y'all doing so much in the cyber realm, cyber initiatives? Why is it important? I said, well, because the criminals are getting ahead in that arena as well, and we lose far more dollars now to cybercrime than we do armed robberies. And so, that's going to be the crime of the future, and we've got to train our law enforcement to investigate those, to be defensive, to make sure our systems are protected. But when we do get robbed, or when the average Mississippi citizen gets taken advantage of, we can pursue criminal charges against those individuals.
They have access, as you know, to a range of tools and technologies as well that unfortunately they apply in a nefarious way, and you've got to be better at it than them.
Absolutely, and they're very creative. They will hack into a business email, set up an actual email account in that server, and send out requests for wire transfers and things like that. And people believe it's real. You've got to be so cautious these days when you do those types of transfers. And just for the record, let me say, Mississippi does not have toll bridges. We do not have a DMV. We do not send text messages saying that if you don't pay your fines, your license is going to be suspended. If you get a text message on your phone asking you to pay money to any state agency, it is a fraud. It is a scam. Don't fall for it. But these individuals are relentless. They switch numbers, they switch accounts, they move in and out of different countries, and so you got to be leery. Don't fall for the text message scam.
Appreciate you saying that. I got one yesterday, not the first one. I don't know that there's anybody that's tuned into us that hasn't received some of these scam messages.
Absolutely.
And they look legitimate, but don't fall for it. You're not going to do that.
And look, I'd be lying if I said a couple of times I felt like they were about to get me. I mean, I had one. I was going to get a great deal on my AT&T phone. I was like, you're going to cut my bill in 50%.
I had that scam put on me as well. I know exactly what you're talking about. It sounds totally legitimate. And they're somehow able to spoof the AT&T numbers and their text messages and so forth. It looks totally legitimate. And that's just the point I was making, is that they're good at being crooks. Unfortunately, we got to be bad at identifying them and making sure that they are punished and suffer the consequences to deter that.
Absolutely. And then again, preparing the defenses. One of the things we want to do is sit down with AT&T and T-Mobile and Verizon and have some real conversations. I mean, if you can block these scam calls or these phishing calls, you ought to be able to block some of these scam calls too.
I totally agree. So we are between legislative sessions, of course, and I know that you are in constant contact with our legislative and state leaders. Anything in particular on your radar for the 27th session, Commissioner?
My number one priority, just like it was last year, is trying to get better salaries for our first responders here at DPS and really throughout the entire agency. I always use this example a lot. I was able to travel 82 counties last year. I met with sheriffs and chiefs from all over. I was really impressed with a little town in the Delta called Cleveland, Mississippi, that has about 11,000 people. They've got 47 full-time officers, starting salaries of $61,000, and they hadn't had a homicide in 18 months when I was there. So,
incredible.
I just think it shows what the support of law enforcement can do, but we've got to give them a salary that's commensurate with the risk and the professionalism that we expect. And so, again, I'll be making another push to get our state law enforcement salaries up to what I think they should be.
Yeah. Well, I know you've been a strong advocate of that. I've heard you make that case as well about the city of Cleveland in the Delta, which has a compensation structure that exceeds that of our state troopers.
It does. It does.
And somehow they're able to make it work. And we want the best men and women in uniform serving in our highway patrol and our state trooper organization.
Absolutely, and across DPS, whether it's at Capitol Police, CTED, NBI, NBN, Homeland, I want the best of the best, and I want the best of the good guys chasing the worst of the bad guys.
100%.
And I want to give them the tools they need. And look, I'll say this, and we've had a guy here talk about PTSD and mental health for these professionals. They don't need to be working 80 hours a week. They need time off. They need to decompress. They need to be with their family, and that's what a good salary will do for them.
Appreciate you coming on, Commissioner.
Appreciate all you do.
Congratulations on the event.
Well, thank you, and it's another great success. Thank the Attorney General and our staffs. This thing has grown from begging 400 people to come to over 900 now, so very, very proud of it.
Commissioner Sean Tyndall, he runs the Mississippi Department of Public Safety. He's been our guest. We're coming right back with Robert Eikop. He's a
Poly up a Check it out. Let's do this. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Sheraton in Flowood, Mississippi. We're here for the Mississippi Public Safety Summit, and we're pleased to welcome now Rob Eikop. He's a special agent in charge of the FBI Jackson, Mississippi office. Rob, thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much. My pleasure to be here.
So this event is a pretty big deal where law enforcement officers, folks that work in the justice world are all gathered together, assembled together to talk about how they can more effectively protect the citizens. I mean, that's kind of what it's all about, isn't it?
It is. And I'll tell you, first, I can't say enough about General Fitch and Commissioner Tyndall and what they have done in their positions and their agencies for the state of Mississippi. And as I've been here for the last 2 years and through our conversations, what has been essential for us is to have a true connection and partnership across our agencies at the federal level, the state level, and then with our local partners. And so when you look at the Public Safety Summit, this really serves as an example of those connections. And as you look at the outcomes of the work that we have done together, the crime in Mississippi has gone down. The communities are safer in parts of Mississippi. We know there's other communities that we need to work on, but we are doing that together. We have unique authorities and capabilities from the federal, state, local levels, and we bring those together holistically, we can make a difference for communities.
Do you feel like that to some degree a factor there is deterrence, because we're able to capture, arrest, prosecute, convict the criminals, and maybe the word gets around? That's the ultimate goal of those laws, is to deter crime.
It is, and for different criminals, there are different levels of deterrence.
Okay.
And what we're finding is, particularly on the violent crime side, when you think about the gangs, the violent offenders in that space, that they may not look at incarceration locally with the same deterrence that they're going to be looking at a federal time when they're doing 20 years in the FCI in North Dakota. And so that's where, when we have conversations, we really look to see which of our authorities can be best applied to this particular scenario, this particular criminal offense, and how can we get the best outcome in terms of not just the sentencing for them, but then what is that expected deterrence? You know, I talk to my law enforcement partners frequently about the work that we can do together, that if we can effectively work on some of these criminal enterprises. So while we have over 200 gangs in Mississippi, a lot of them are these neighborhood-based gangs. They're not traditional gangs that most people understand as the gang structure, but they are criminal enterprises. And so how can we work together to pull some of the criminal activity that they're bringing in those communities, take that out of those streets and give those communities an opportunity for some relief, to recover and rebuild themselves. And that's where we look at what we can bring from the federal side in terms of those sentencing conviction, or the convictions and those sentencings that come with them, really then allows not just to get them removed, but then for those that are remaining, or those who may be susceptible to some of that recruitment, that they may think twice when they realize it's not going to the local jail and they're going to be spending time in the cell with a guy that they were just in the corner with 6 months ago. They're gone for 15, 20 years. 2,000 miles away.
Hopefully that's a strong deterrent. Yeah,
that's what we're looking for.
You surprised me with 200 gangs in Mississippi, huh?
It's very unfortunate that that's the case that we have here. But what I am seeing, and in my conversations with our partners, what is really informing my vision and the work that we're doing within the office, is that there's a number of areas, not just unique to Mississippi, but across the country, where there's just the broken home concept, and what that is meaning in terms of there's not a family for that kid. Well, that gang will serve as a family. They will raise their hand and say, well, you're part of the family. And they will feel that connection. And as that's happening and they're being successful in showing what that looks like, they're increasing the number of their recruitments. And so that's part of that deterrence, which is we need to be able to show that that is not the path to follow. But we can't police our way through that. So from our conversations, we're really a resource for the community to create a void of that violent activity and those actors. But then the community has the biggest challenge in front of them, which is they are then going to have to look for those who would be the future recruitees, and they're going to have to get in front of them. And in some instances, you're having to raise someone else's kid and giving them access to programs and opportunities that they otherwise would not get. And so that's what makes it so difficult for the communities, because it's a multi-generational ownership that they have to take to really have the communities that they want to be able to live in, and to be able to have a defense against that criminal activity in their communities.
Makes total sense. How large is the Jackson office?
Well, I will say that we are one of the smaller offices in the FBI. I don't necessarily go into the numbers of what our agents are, but what I can say is we can't be everywhere across the state and work all the different violations and threats that are facing us in Mississippi. So we are very intentional at how we position ourselves. And what I mean by that is on an annual basis, we look at the threats that we have here in Mississippi. Violent crime for me and in the office, that's the number one threat that we're facing in Mississippi. But from that, then it really helps us determine where do we need to take these particular resources, where do we need to leverage them in partnership with the state resources, and what local communities do we need to go and spend some time in working to help get that criminal activity out of those communities.
Appreciate you coming on, Rob Eichhoff, Special Agent in charge of the FBI Jackson office.
My pleasure.
Enjoyed it. Thank you, Rob.
So much.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, we're coming right back, folks. It's time for Fox News and SuperTalk News, because it's the top of the hour. Stay with us. We're at the Mississippi Public Safety Summit in Flowood, Mississippi.
That's all right. That's all right, now, Mama. Any way you do.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone, to Hour 3 of Middays from the Element Wealth Studio that's been relocated today to the Sheraton in Flowood, Mississippi, for the Mississippi Public Safety Summit on this
Friday Eve,
the final and afternoon hour of the program. So tonight, I should say, I'll be headed down to the Sunkissed Country Club in Biloxi, Mississippi. Harrison County Republican Club is hosting a debate on school choice, education freedom. I just received some questions that are to be asked by the moderator of the panelists. Boy, if all panelists answer every one of these questions, I might not make the remote we have tomorrow in Hattiesburg. Could take a while to get through all that. Interesting. But looking forward to that discussion tonight for sure. Fracking, that's a technology, honestly, that came onto the scene several years ago that has really significantly increased the supply of oil in the United States. It kind of seems like a distant memory now, but we have significantly increased our exploration and extraction of oil through the fracking process. And this has saved people money. Gas as well, by the way. Natural gas production has tripled since the advent of fracking. That is one source of energy we have that actually grossly exceeds our consumption. And we are a net exporter of natural gas. And there are crazy people out there that, of course, Rhino, these people may be in the same vein as the anti-data center group that are protesting, this fracking. It seems to have died down. I guess they've all moved over to the data center protest or something. But, man, the fear-mongering around fracking when it first came onto the scene, kind of like the data center fear-mongering. Just outrageous. And what they were saying was fracking was an energy policy equivalent to providing cancer, to promoting cancer. And they're totally wrong about that, of course. Shale gas has saved U.S. natural gas customers estimated between 2005 and 2025 to be at $3.1 to $4.3 trillion. That's just mind-boggling when you think about it. But there's still folks out there that oppose it. You've got the state of Pennsylvania. I know they have very strict regulations around it, though the state is quite flush with oil and gas that could be harvested using fracking technology and techniques.
Most of the people that have been adamantly against fracking were convinced by the video of the lady in her house that turned on her faucet and held a match up to the tap water and flames started shooting out. So they were convinced at that moment that fracking is dangerous, it's putting flammable materials in the drinking water, and they didn't take the 30 seconds it took to Google that particular town where she lived, where there are newspaper clippings from 50 years before the video of her tap water catching fire was ever a thing, talking about methane deposits in the groundwater causing fires on top of water.
Unbelievable.
So, maybe it's not the fracking. Maybe it's just this weird geological formation.
Unbelievable. Yeah, exactly. So, but
that requires actual intelligence and the capability to understand new information. These people just see one thing one time and regurgitate it for the rest of their lives because they think it makes them smarter. At least they feel smarter, they feel better, they feel virtuous, they feel like they've done something. Because in reality, they are worthless. They've done nothing with their life. They've contributed nothing to society. So that empty void in their soul where productivity could have filled it up a little bit, or maybe even faith, no, they just have this soul-sucking need to be the center of attention, even though they're espousing stupidity.
It's unbelievable. And they don't, I guess, recognize, don't care, maybe. They would if their price went up, but this is what's kept natural gas affordable. And it's probably not, they probably also don't realize that is a major source of energy in powering the electricity plants that generate electrical power for us. The source of energy that powers most of those is natural gas. Coal as well, but natural gas is a huge input in the production of electricity in this country. And the good news is we got plenty of it, and we should leverage it. Our society cannot thrive without fossil fuels. I don't know why that's so hard to understand. These people are dreaming if they think we can just make this instant flip of the switch, no pun intended, to all of these so-called renewable energy sources. But it's another thing where I feel like they just need a cause, and they got to go out and get behind the cause and get attention. That's what's happening more than anything. So on the ceasefire text line, I didn't know about this. Did the commissioner address the driver's licenses that are not working at TSC checkpoints in the Mississippi Mobile ID app? Didn't get to that. Didn't see it. Is that a problem? I wasn't aware of that. You heard anything about that, Rhino? The driver's license and the mobile ID not working at TSA?
Yeah, it has to do with the scanners. There's apparently some glitch in the system when it prints out the funky-looking barcode on the back. Some of them aren't being printed correctly, so that when it scans, it doesn't recognize it as your ID.
Okay. All right, so
like if you have one that's faulty and you go through TSA, they scan it, and they're going to go, it's not valid, even though it's a perfectly valid license.
Okay. Mo says, in all fairness, Gerard and Rhino, if you're a paid protester, you have to read whatever script you're given. That seems to be a lot of that going on, especially these days. We're seeing it proliferate, the data center protesting lines. And by the way, on the ceasefire text line, they're proving legitimate concerns with data centers. It's not all fear-mongering. Well, they're proving legitimate concerns about a lot of stuff. Factories, distribution facilities, roads, bridges.
Drinking too much water is lethal.
That's true. So I agree. Sure. Do we have to, like I said, do we have to be careful? Do we need reasonable guidelines? Yes, absolutely. But when people start talking about where we're draining the water table, well, flushing toilets uses more water than data centers do. And everybody's electricity is going to go up. Well, sure, if you don't plan for the additional supply of electricity needed to power data centers, if that's not properly accommodated and in a way that ensures that the user, the consumer of that electricity is bearing the cost, sure, I agree, that's a problem. With respect to pollution, the data centers themselves don't produce any. That would be any pollution, if there is any or such, that is emitted by the actual electric power generation plants. Does that mean that we just should discontinue the use of electricity altogether because of that?
It's just hard to take the anti-data center people seriously when they're ignoring the water cycle you learned in freaking elementary school, and B, using AI-generated images coming from data centers to protest against data centers.
I know, it's incredible. And using AI often to produce the content that they use to do the protests. Just unbelievable. Kenny in Wayne County points out fracking has been around since the late 1940s. The ability to drill horizontally has brought about the increase in production. And that's a recent advent, is it not, Kenny? That's my understanding. I think fracking, in a general sense, you're right.
It was experimented with back then. They also experimented with pouring acid into the soil for acid etching the rock to open it up.
Right. I understand. Well, we're taking a break right now. Once again, we are at the Sheraton Refuge in Flowood, Mississippi. We're at the Mississippi Public Safety Summit. Coming right back.
folks. I'm Andy.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Well studio down, I shouldn't say down, we're over in Rankin County in Flowood, Mississippi at the Sheraton Refuge for the Mississippi Public Safety Summit. Let's see here. Guys and girls, this is a text from someone I don't think's ever sent us a message before. Welcome. Guys and girls, I worked in the hydrofrac process in Pennsylvania with the Red H Company. Hydrofrac is safe, I promise. No worries. Well, appreciate you passing that on to us. I wasn't worried about it, and I know Rhino wasn't. I think most of our audience is not worried about it. I was just making the point that there's an economic aspect to this, and the fact that we, again, the miracle of capitalism, right? There's a need, and innovators figured out a way how to get to this oil and gas that without this technology would be inaccessible. And so that produces more supply, and supply chasing demand is how you moderate the price. I mean, it's pretty simple. You produce more, you bring the cost down. It's just simple as that. Y'all are way out over your skis. You see in this, Rhino, in the water component of your responses to data center usage, the water intake and use is a valid question. No, it's not. And I'll tell you why. I have done the research, considerable research on this. It's 0.3% of total water consumed in the country. The Nissan plant, which manufactures automobiles in Canton, consumes more water and has since it has existed for 20 years than both of the AWS campuses. Prove me wrong. Now, if I'm wrong about this, then the engineers who supplied this data are wrong, and I doubt that they are. You're saying that civil engineers are over their skis? That people who run these facilities are over their skis? That's ridiculous. Does it make sense to build water guzzling anything in a parched part of the country, such as the desert Southwest, that's already struggling with drought conditions and constrained water? Probably not. It doesn't make sense to do hardly anything that uses water in those areas. I could also say this with confidence. I don't have the actual statistical metric data in front of me, but just my eyes don't deceive me. When I see just water pouring out into the street around cities in around Mississippi, just being wasted, going down the drain, that makes me think that we got a lot of work to do to conserve our water supply. The amount of water wasted in this country just from faulty infrastructure and mismanagement exceeds the water consumed by data centers. You say you're for data centers, but some of these comments you're making are questionable at best. Well, that's fine. You can question them all day long. Doesn't bother me. But your data, I don't know what data you have, but your position, I believe, is misguided. It's just simple as that. And again, what's your suggestion? No more buildings, no more houses, no more apartments, no more residential dwellings, no more shopping centers, no more office buildings, no more schools, no more stadiums, no more roads and bridges, no more paint. Water's used in the paint production process. No more agriculture, which, by the way, uses 72% of the water. You don't think there's inefficient use of water in agriculture? Man. And Rhino, think about it. Guess how we address those issues? With artificial intelligence and data centers. That's how we make everything more productive. Unbelievable. Oh, man. I don't even know where to go. The electricity concerns are the most valid. This is on the C Spire text line. They have, in some cases, been responsible for large rate increases. That is absolutely true in areas of the country where improper planning or lack of planning, really. These data centers sprouted up without ensuring that there was sufficient electricity supply to accommodate their needs, and it got off the rails, no doubt about it. And so the electricity producers, the utility companies, had to figure out a way to go fund all this CapEx needed to build out more infrastructure to produce more electricity. That's the wrong way to do it. That's not what we did here in Mississippi. We didn't put a shovel in the ground until we knew that the increased demand for electricity could be accommodated, that the utility providers would step up to the plate, and that the consumers of that electricity would bear that cost. And that is absolutely what we've done in Mississippi. And I'm proud of that fact. That is the right way to do it. But should we just say no more growth because it uses electricity? We don't have the means to generate more electricity? I mean, should we return to the level of electricity supply and total amount generated of, 20, 40, 60 years ago? I am. Yes, I am. This is a question. I am confident that we have planned properly. Why have we granted them less oversight? If you're talking about allowing the utility company and the utility companies to negotiate directly with their customer without PSC oversight, yeah, I'm confident of that, because here's why. If the utility companies show up with a rate increase request to the PSC, and that's because they miscalculated or they didn't properly accommodate this need, this increased demand, such that now, I'm sorry, mea culpa, we got to go back to the ratepayers to get whole. The PSC is not going to be friendly there. The people of Mississippi are not going to let them just sign off on that carte blanche. I'm certainly going to raise hell if that's the case, but I do not expect that to be the case whatsoever. In fact, quite the opposite. That's what I believe. The price of electricity continuously rises. My power bill is a lot more today than it was 5 years ago, and we don't have any data centers. Just got 5 buildings online in December. There have been no rate increases. That's just all driven by the inflation, by the increased cost of producing and transmitting power, which is all legitimate cause for rates to increase. I'm certainly paying a lot more money for that than I did. How does this waste water, groundwater, pump through a chiller, then through the building to cool equipment, then pump back into the ground? Where's the water wasted? Yeah, the water, Thomas, some of it, of course, evaporates as part of the cooling process, and what is returned is not potable. So it's a little different. But what is used is wastewater, not drawing potable water. Water is part of that process. Gerard, big day to Gibert. Keep up the work. Love the show. That's pretty funny. And I promise, I'm serious when I say this. If the utility companies in my area in particular, with respect to AWS, Entergy, if they show up at the PSC requesting a rate increase because they blew it on servicing these hyperscalers, I will be the first to raise my hand and say, no, we're not doing that. You assured us that wouldn't be the case. I don't think that will ever happen. I'm 100% confident that's never going to happen. But I just want you to know where I stand on that. And with respect to water, Rhino, you've had all these people say, well, yeah, my water pressure went down. And what were you telling us a minute ago? People putting a match to the water coming out, they claim was a result of nearby fracking. And in the case of Madison County, Mississippi, there are 5 buildings already up and running right now. I haven't heard any complaints about water pressure or increase in water costs or electricity brownouts, and that's before the additional infrastructure generation capacity is even online. Man, oh man. So this is something that we have to address and we have to be concerned about, but we can do it in a thoughtful, rational, safe, ethical manner. We can meet our needs here. It's just critically important. Data centers are the factories of the future. What do they manufacture? Knowledge, intelligence. Who uses that? Everybody. We're going to step aside for a break right here. Once again, we're at the Mississippi Public Safety Summit. Colin King, Program Manager, Family Violence Center at ASU, is next.
From theSeabrook.com.
Come on.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
All right, we are back
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Sheraton Refuge in Flowood, Mississippi. We're here for the Mississippi Public Safety Summit, and we're pleased to welcome now Colin King, Program Manager, Family Violence Center, Arizona State University. Hey, Colin, thanks for coming on.
Hey, Gerard, thank you very much for having me today.
What brings you to Mississippi to this summit today?
Well, other than the beautiful weather and the very friendly folks, I'm here to do a presentation today on our National Domestic Violence Fatality Review Initiative. It's a program that is sponsored by the Department of Justice through the Office of Violence Against Women. We've been working on this since 2004 all across the country. And it's really an effort to help with training and technical assistance of police departments and communities in terms of trying to find ways to prevent intimate partner homicides.
Okay. So how are we doing there in this country? It just seems like, I don't know if it's a function of the 724 news cycle or social media or the fact that people just to communicate more and have ways to communicate, but it seems like that's just a big problem in our country.
It is, unfortunately, and so, if you look at the numbers, though, it's somewhat hidden. So we have about 15 million assault-type calls, stalkings, domestic violence, disorderly conducts, those types of calls across the country. And then within that, we have about 2,000 to 2,500 intimate partner homicides per year across the country. And so it's easy when you're looking at the numbers to say, well, that's a really small number in comparison to our large DV problem. But these are just devastating for communities and for families. And especially in the police world where I come from, you see the damage it does to the survivors and the folks that live in the community. And so it's really an effort to evaluate systems because no two communities are alike, right? And no two police departments are alike in their interactions with their government and others. And so it's really a way to help tailor prevention strategies and other efforts to work for what's best for that particular community.
Gotcha. So my daughter happens to work for Child Protection Services here in Mississippi. That's the agency charged with intervening and dealing with those kinds of incredibly sensitive and difficult situations, shall we say.
Most definitely.
What do we need to be doing to eliminate this family violence stuff?
Yeah, that's hard, right? And so I think we're in a getting to a better spot. I mean, if you look at the data over decades, we've seen a change in the way Americans especially view family violence, where it used to be, behind closed doors, we don't talk about it, we don't really address it, to it being a concern for communities and for individuals. This is a problem for all of us to help solve. So I think talking about it, educating, some of the work that we do, especially with the police departments in terms of risk assessment at the scene. So when our officers are at the scene, obviously police departments across the country have limited resources, limited time, and so it's a good opportunity to get with these officers and train them. Okay, how do we triage really high-risk situations so that you can put your efforts to these types of situations where we have scientifically validated risk markers that they're able to do easily at the scene. And so once you start to get those interventions involved, through victim advocacy, through the courts, through the judiciary, it really starts to help, I think, set a standard that we're holding people accountable for the crimes, and hopefully, and that includes the perpetrator, right? I think all of us would prefer not to have a homicide happen in our community. So is there something that we could do early on before that fatal step?
Often law enforcement are the first to encounter these situations. I guess a call comes in and they have to respond, and they find themselves in the middle of a very thorny family situation that's difficult for them to manage.
Absolutely. It's one. I come from a police background. I retired as a police captain about 18 months ago from Tucson.
Okay.
And so I've done a lot of training with new officers and responded to these calls myself. And it's always one of the most dangerous calls for officers to respond, because you go into the scene, you try to make it safe, and you recognize that the victim, in this case, could turn around and become a potential suspect, or vice versa. There could be mutual combatants. And when you look at the data across the country, we see, especially when our officers are killed, sadly, many of them are responding to domestic violence-related calls. And so you see the data showing those responses, when we're looking at the fatalities across the country, are high. And then when you're looking at how they're killed, we see long guns involved. And so it really is a dangerous, combustible situation for officers to respond to. And so when I go out to these communities teaching officer safety is always paramount in any kind of police training. But this is something that we highlight is, look, the information you're gathering, these risk markers that you're able to ascertain, some of the stuff that's coming out of these fatality reviews, that helps you understand, are there, for example, factors of suicidality? Was there financial loss recently? Is there a divorce pending or a separation pending? Some of these are high-risk markers. And if you know that, and you know that, okay, there's firearms in the house, and there's, potential substance use or alcohol use, they start to add up. And so you could add that information in to help your officers that may be responding to a later call, so they're prepared, maybe just a little bit more when they're going to these scenes.
One of the concerns we have, of course, in Mississippi, and I suspect this is the case across the country, is just a shortage of social workers that get involved in these situations, and where they're overworked, overwhelmed with cases.
Absolutely, and that is absolutely true. Some of the communities that we go out and talk to, their nearest social workers counties away, so there's not even an opportunity for them to respond to the scene that night. But we're utilizing technologies in new ways now, and so officers often will be carrying a cell phone or their MTCs or computerized vehicle computers. They can FaceTime with counselors, they can FaceTime with advocates, somehow interact in kind of new ways that the technology is enabling us to somewhat overcome that shortage. Okay. But there's definitely, you're absolutely right, a shortage across the country.
Yeah, well, as you know, it's pretty high stress work. Often coming into unimaginable circumstances, and the pay isn't great. You don't do it for the pay.
You don't do it for the pay. That's true.
Yeah. Bottom line. So, in working with law enforcement here in the state of Mississippi, and of course our justice system as well, I feel like we punch above our weight a little bit here in Mississippi. I think we've got really great professionals involved in that do a fabulous job of protecting our citizens. In your work, are you kind of monitoring the rate of crime and these kinds of crimes, in particular family violence across the country? Are there areas that are maybe where it's more pronounced than it is in others?
We do make that a part of our role, and unfortunately I can't say it's only in one side of town or another side of town. It really is widespread. We see it across socioeconomic standards, racial standards. We look across gender, and I mean all of the different ways that you might be able to break it down. There really isn't one area where you're saying, okay, that's definitely going to be a domestic violence kind of area. So that's why we have to prepare our officers for any kind of situation.
Yeah. Sure, absolutely. So, with respect to your remarks today, will you be available to them for questions and perhaps some consultation afterwards?
Absolutely. In fact, in the very last slide of my presentation, I have my personal cell phone and my email up there, and I will welcome that always, especially because today will be a bit condensed. There's a lot of material to cover, so I welcome follow-up and other calls, especially because Mississippi signed their fatality review team law back in July, so you really are kind of at the cutting edge now of developing these teams. SB 2886 from last July. And so, this is a great opportunity to kind of learn from each other, and I completely agree with you. The professionals here are second to none. I'm really excited to be able to talk with them, and then, of course, any kind of follow-up or other work together in the future.
I assume that an endeavor like this is one where the body of knowledge continues to increase, that you deal with situations, you do a post-mortem on that, analyze, document, and then discuss things that went right in the way that was handled, things that could have been better, and then try to get that disseminated to everybody.
That's exactly right. And one of the primary factors for these teams, and when you're evaluating it, is to take a no blame and shame approach. Right?
Okay.
Because if somebody says, all right, you messed up, it's your fault,
sure,
people are going to stop. They're not going to talk. So it's really if you think about aviation investigations, for example, and the openness that they look at, from the ticket taker to the mechanics to the bag handlers to the pilots, all across, we're really trying to say, hey, let's take a look at this, let's learn about it, and figure out ways to prevent these in the future from a holistic safety approach.
Makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Well, glad you guys are doing this and addressing this issue, really this kind of a scourge on our society, this family violence stuff, and hopefully we can do better and maybe come up with some ways to prevent those kinds of things. Appreciate you coming on, Colin.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Colin King, Program Manager, Family Violence Center, Arizona State University. We're here at the Mississippi Public Safety Summit in Rankin County, Mississippi, at the Refuge in Flowood. We're going to wrap it up in the next segment with John Kwaka. He's the police chief for the city of Tupelo.
Rolling. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so
awesome. On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Refuge in Rankin County, Mississippi, Flowood. We're here for the Mississippi Public Safety Summit. We're pleased to welcome now John Kwaka, the police chief of the Tupelo Police Department. Chief, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
So what do you think about this event?
I love it. I've been to all 4 years. The speakers are incredible. There's no other law enforcement seminar in the state of Mississippi where you can get this level of speakers.
Yeah, and it's one that so many people from across the state, they get together maybe the only time during the year when they see each other often.
It is. That's true. A lot of my friends that I've known for 30 years, this is the one time I know I'll see them.
Yeah, and the collaboration between everybody, I think, is quite valuable. And folks come away with lots of, I think, good information, good ideas from the speakers, and a bunch of vendors here, too, that are showing stuff is useful in law enforcement.
Right. The networking is second to none at this event.
How's it going in Tupelo?
It's going good. We are really doing well. I'm very supportive mayor, very supportive city council of the police department, and things are going well.
Yeah. Well, good. So crime, how's that going?
Crime is low. Of course, we've seen a national trend where it's low, but it's been low in Tupelo, and we have been proactive to keep it that way.
Good. Well, anything in particular that you'd like to see our legislature address in the next session, Chief?
That's a great question. We continue to fight with salaries that are below the national average, way below the national average. Would like to see some kind of increased funding for that. And more importantly, or just as importantly, I'd like to see PERS go back to 25 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
25 years.
25 years.
So we corrected the Tier 5 issue from 35 to 30.
We did.
You want the full retirement to be at 25.
I do. Law enforcement officers see things on the streets that affect them mentally, physically. We have shorter lives than everyone else. Our suicide rate's higher, our divorce rate's higher, and I think that needs to be compensated for.
Right. Good. Okay. Well, I think the legislature is likely to be talking about that somewhat. Of course, they're getting pulled in the other direction for needing more funding into the PERS program to ensure it is stable and it is available going forward. So
that's right.
We had someone from the FBI here. In fact, the deputy director, Andrew Bailey, FBI co-deputy director, was with us today visiting Mississippi. What do you think about that? Having someone pretty high up there.
Yeah, that's really nice that he came. I'm a former retired FBI agent, so I resonate with the FBI speakers really well this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was a delight to talk to and very complimentary of our law enforcement here in the state of Mississippi. He says that we're a model.
And we really are.
Yeah.
It's very unique what we have in Mississippi. Law enforcement works really well together. My first office with the FBI was Los Angeles, California. Didn't work so well with the local agencies there.
Yeah.
Of course, that was 30 years ago, but we do have something special in Mississippi.
Yeah. Well, I agree. We certainly do, and we're all grateful for that, grateful for the service of everyone in uniform. We know that they take enormous risk, and they don't do it for a whole lot of money, honestly, right. and they do it to keep our folks safe and protect their property, and I think they do a great job of that. Is there anything new that you've learned so far at this event, at the summit, Chief, that you're going to take back and implement?
The mental health is a huge part that we try to implement at the police department. But I picked up some new things, learned some new things, and that's what I really want to take back. We've really got to take care of each other and ourselves really before we can take care of the community.
Yeah.
So I want to make that a priority for us.
Yeah, I've heard about that from others as well in law enforcement, how that is a need. Trooper Johnny Polis, Major Polis, that used to handle communications for our public safety group, and now is totally focused on that. Mm-hmm. And I remember when he was appointed into that position, I think a perfect role for him. But it came because I happened to ask the question one day when they were talking about all the accidents that they had been dealing with, and man, how do they manage that? In their lives, they're human beings too.
They are, but most law enforcement officers are type A personality, and they're not going to come to you for help.
Yeah.
Now, there's red flags that we need to be looking for, that we really need to stay on top, and we need to be going to them. Hey, it's time for you to get a little help,
right?
Because of what you've seen in your career or what you just saw last week on the street.
Yeah, I understand, and so that's something I'm glad to see that law enforcement is recognizing, because it can be a problem and it could manifest into something even more serious and more horrific.
You're right.
So
it can.
Want to make sure that we take care of those folks. But so we got another day of this, or are we wrapping up today?
No, this is it. Today we finish at about 3:30.
Okay, yes. Wrapping up today. Been good?
Yes, very good. Yeah, they seem to get a little better every year.
Good. Appreciate that feedback.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming on as well. We've been talking to Police Chief John Quaka of the Tupelo Police Department. Thanks for coming on, Chief.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You too. Folks, that's a wrap here today from Flowood, Mississippi for the Mississippi Public Safety Summit. Tomorrow we're going to be at the Armed Forces Museum at Camp Shelby for a big Memorial Day show. Until then, stay safe and God bless everyone.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.